Gucci. It was a name that sounded so sweet, so seductive.
Come, meet the family.
Hey everybody, this is Patrizia, and this is my family.
Kick his teeth out!
They had it all. Wealth, style, power. Who wouldn't kill for that?
First of all, Lady Gaga, you're now two of my favorite films of all time. I don't know how you are 2 for 2, but it's incredible. I'm gonna start with you, and I know that you had an incredible journey to finding Patrizia. And watching your performance was more than a performance to me. It was transformative. Like, you took me on a journey that I lost where I was. You were mesmerizing. So I wanna know about finding Patrizia. From the bigger moments, because she's such a big, larger-than-life character, down to the father-son House of Gucci, those little moments that were so nuanced that the internet loved, but that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Well, gosh, that's a very big question. I'd like to start by saying part of the way I believe you find your character is the camaraderie with the cast, and I'm very lucky to have an incredible cast, and everybody here was so giving, and I ultimately believe that when you show up on set, no matter how much work you've done, you have to be able to talk and listen to each other so that you can respond. I mean, Father, Son, and House of Gucci was something that we did on the spot. I mean, so much of that scene we made up. And finding Patrizia was something that was, I made it a sort of life mission for myself. I became fascinated with being a sort of journalist about it. And there was so much written about her. So many people said such bad things about her. And I wanted to create something that was a real woman. I wanted to find what the trigger points were in her life that added up to this murder, and what happens to somebody that's born, just like we all are, into the world, and what mattered to her. You know, I think one of my favorite things about watching this film is not only is every performance, I think, special, but she's kind of in the same place at the end of the movie that she is at the beginning. Wow. Because I thought to myself when I watched it, why did she even try? Why did she even try to matter? Because there was so much going on around her that she couldn't possibly transgress. So I read everything except for the book House of Gucci, which I stayed away from because I didn't want it to position my thinking too much. And I spent a lot of time with Ridley, with Adam, talking about the script. Yeah. And I work on a lot of personification. Every single person that I worked with, there was somebody in my life I could relate it to. And it also helps when you are working with great people that you can have those conversations with and listen. I don't know what Patrizia was like before she killed Maurizio, but I do know what she was like after. And I did my best to figure out what it would take to push a woman over the edge to make such a big mistake. I believe it was a mistake that she made.
That leads me to Adam, this relationship between the two of you. There's such a huge scope to this film, and it spans decades, and the way that this relationship starts in one place and ends in another. Can you talk about how you two found those moments and those beats over the course of the film, and was it shot in succession?
Shot out of order. We had 2 weeks of rehearsal before we started, so that was really helpful to kind of have an idea. But then when we were playing it, I feel like we didn't really, or at least from my perspective, think of it as a whole pieces. I feel like we kind of had a general sense of where it was going, so then we would just play the scenes as they were, and how it kind of charted was more up to Ridley.
It's incredible for you, because I feel like you started out in one place and you ended up in a different place. You say you ended up in the same place that you started. Do you feel that about your character, or do you feel like...
I mean, that's one of the things that we talked about in rehearsal of, he kind of, in a way, starts the most mature, even though he starts at a place that's his most immature. He's very wise about the pitfalls of being seduced by wealth, because it was a part of his environment from birth, so he's aware of all these speeches that are made to seduce someone new. But then even he, when he's put in a position of power, can't help but also be seduced by something that he knows is dangerous. So that's something that we talked about in rehearsal and as we were shooting it, of seduction and how powerful wealth and power can be, and regardless if you can intellectualize it and know, it's hard to make those decisions when you're in the, in the line of fire.
Jared, I feel like next to the dictionary definition of transformation, they're going to have your photo soon and your name, because your transformations from film to film are becoming stuff of legends. Talk to me a little bit. Obviously, there was the 5.5 hours of prosthetics involved and makeup, but for you, underneath it all, balancing that comedic, beautifully comedic performance with those almost heartbreaking sensitivities that he had. How did you find him and find that transformation?
You go on a journey. You become a journalist, a detective of sorts, and you probably do far too much work. But you never know. Sometimes the smallest thing can help trigger your imagination. And it's funny. At one point, I went to see Paolo's grave, and it took a drive through the Italian, countryside, and of course it was in the middle of COVID, so it was kind of haunting and empty. And it was really powerful to see that this was a real person. This was someone who lived and breathed and walked the earth, and I quite fell in love with the idea of this character, the impression that I had of someone who really struggled to bring his creative dreams to life.
Wow, beautiful performance.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Al Pacino.
Yes.
I'm going to go there, and I'm going to draw a parallel to The Godfather. This is like an epic family drama. What is it about family and felonies that seduced you into wanting to play Aldo, who is your namesake in a sense?
Family and felony.
Family and
That's pretty
felonies.
cool.
And did you have any drawbacks, like flashbacks, being in Italy filming, and what is it that seduces you to play this type of a role?
Well, the director, Ridley Scott, and then such a great cast. And there they are in Italy, and I'm here in the pandemic, or the vestiges of it. And I've been here for a while, and I can get away and go somewhere like that. Little did I know that Rome was on lockdown. So, but I still would have went no matter what, because this project, this script, was exciting and wonderful opportunity. So, so I thought, I'll just go, give it a shot. Like, I rarely do that, actually. I usually worry over texts and wonder about it. But this, I just went with the glow. I thought I was going to be in a relatively comfortable place there with these people, so I went. And I actually, interestingly enough, I didn't think of The Godfather at all. And you remind me of it, and I think that's a good analysis. It's also, too, I just didn't, the script changed. And I was here, and they were sending me changes of the text. And every change, and I had nothing to do with it, made the script better. So I thought, somebody is in charge there who knows what they're doing, because it really connected. So then I went out with a good feeling, positive feeling.
Yeah.
And naturally later on, like I think it was about a month ago, I realized what it was in the character that I was playing. I wish I would have thought of it while I was playing it, but it sometimes I don't think as much. I'm so used to rehearsing, because I come from the theater, and people don't rehearse as much anymore, and so I didn't have rehearsal. So these things come out when you're working on something. But anyway, I just realized that I think Aldo, my character, wanted people to like him and all, but enjoyed thinking that he was smarter than everybody. I like that, and I wonder if that was conveyed or not. But that I said, gee, I wish I would have thought of that when I was doing it in Italy. But I think that's what I wound up deciding, maybe a little late, but still it's...
Well, if it makes any difference, I wanted him as my uncle. I want him as my real-life uncle. Salma, I'll end with you.
Okay.
You have a beautiful relationship between you and Lady Gaga in this, and there's a wonderful scene in a spa, in a mud bath, and I'm wondering just logistically how that looked on set. Was it a girls' bonding moment, or was it not? I know you've talked about Lady Gaga's performance as saying it was genius, but tell me about that moment.
Absolutely bonding moment. We were so tired. It looked so beautiful and delicious. I've never had a mud bath before, which shocks her. How do you get to be your age and not have a mud bath? Something like this. But when we went in, we didn't rehearse that because then we're all dirty and wash and go back in. When we went in, this one goes in like Cleopatra, like nothing. You know, she knows how to handle her mud. She keeps talking, we do the thing. She goes in, perfect, gorgeous. And me, for some strange reason, I start floating like a disgraced balloon, you know? I can't get my ass to hit the ground. I'm going like this and my lines underneath. Ridley's not cutting, he's enjoying the clumps. And she then in the scene improvises to help me because also my boobs are kind of like peeking out of the mud. I'm trying to like go in like this. So I start flipping, but the hair, it was so disgraceful and a disaster. But I kept saying the lines. And then of course, I had Lady Gaga teach me how to sink in the mud, which is just sit your ass down and don't move. The more you move, the more you're gonna float. And so we tried it again.
But that scene was so fun to shoot because
It's so funny.
there's an intimacy that is perceived in that moment. That they're totally alone. They're talking about how, you know, the Maurizio can't run the business, and she's, you know, I was sitting there, I'm like really trying to focus on this one candle that was at the end, and there's, you know, 50 men standing around you. We're trying to have a close up, but not really. When Salma's like moving all over the place, and I just was staring at this candle, hypnotized at what could she possibly be thinking in this moment where she says, well, I can't say because I don't want to give it away, but it's an important moment for.
It's a super important moment.
Yeah.
No time to clown around.
And she was laughing, and then she was making fun of me that I was so serious. And this is the camaraderie of two actors, and I have so much respect for Salma, and I learned so much from her. And you know, the first time I ever spoke to her, she said to me, when you say supporting actress, it means something. She said, I'm here to support you in your performance. I never forgot it. She called me a couple weeks before we started, and it was so kind, and I loved working with you.
But you know what, in our relationship, Pina was not somebody sophisticated. She knew how to navigate that, and Pina really looked up to Patrizia. And Pina wouldn't know how to get into the mud. And of course, it would be Patrizia who teaches her how to descend like Cleopatra. And so every moment, it was so funny because it always worked. It always went back to the relationship between these two women we were playing with. And it was such a delicious relationship.
Gucci is what I say it is. This is not a woman's game. Remember that.
To borrow another phrase from another one of your films, reversal of fortune indeed. I mean, this story is so fascinating. And Rodolfo, for you, being the great thespian that you are, must have been so much for you to mine with this character, including the fact that he was an actor. Did you watch any of his films? Was he a good actor? And
no, he was a terrible actor. He was a terrible actor. I did watch. I watched some of his work, his film. You can find it if you research enough. And but he knew he wasn't a very good actor. He married a very good actress, a German, who he adored, and he sort of gave up and then went into the family firm and let her get on with it. And when she died, he really lived his life remembering her. I mean, we come to him a couple of times in the movie where he's editing a film together of all his work just so that he can watch her on the screen. It's the nearest he can get to her now she's dead. And a man, I think, who enjoyed the paycheck of Gucci, but wasn't really, it was very conservative, didn't really want it to change as a company, was happy with how things were, which brought him into conflict with his brother, who had huge plans to build malls on top of Mount Fuji and that sort of thing.
Right, wow.
And a very controlling father, as many Mediterranean fathers are, who wanted, who was very concerned that anyone else might get hold of the Gucci honeypot.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you, I mean, you have so many epic scenes. The performances, yours included, are astounding in this movie. But you have a scene with Jared Leto's character, you have a scene with Lady Gaga and Adam Driver, where you can cut them down, like you're the man that they almost fear. You couldn't cut them down with either a line or a look. Where do you put your energy as an actor to sort of embody that kind of a character and filming with those other great actors?
I don't know, you just get inside the head of the character and they get inside of the heads of their characters. And Lady Gaga, who is a massive star, much bigger than I am, nevertheless, she is playing a woman who is trying to impress my character. But that's what we do as actors. We get inside other people's heads. We become other people. It's not that hard, but it's what we do.
The last time you worked with Ridley was in 2005. Is it like riding a bike? Do you guys have a rhythm that you sort of jump back into, or did it feel very different this time from the last time?
Well, of course, it's a smaller film. The Kingdom of Heaven, sort of huge, great epic. This is more domestic, although Ridley makes it feel pretty epic at times. He's 15 years older. I think he's a little sweeter than he was then, but he's equally quick, which is what I love. He's a very quick filmmaker. He doesn't hang about. He knows what he wants. He gets it on multiple cameras, and then we can all go home at a reasonable hour.
You are wearing a scarf, and there is a scene about the Flora scarf that your character, that Rodolfo actually designed for Grace Kelly in the film. Was that actually an archive piece that you used in that scene, or was it the actual scarf?
I think it was the actual, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure they made more than one, but it was one of them, yeah.
Patrizia, my nephew.
I've been the Gucci all my life. It is an empire.
You can help the family. Gucci is not exciting, and everybody knows it.
At least it's my name, sweetie.
Our name, sweetie.
First of all, is this true that, Giannina, you said to Ridley for many years, you have to make this movie, you have to make this movie. Why was it so important to you to make this movie? How did you know? Why were you so passionate about it? And then Ridley, I know you're a man of the written word. It's really the script usually that gets you, but what was the catalyst? What was that what was the moment you had that visceral reaction when you're like, we're gonna make this movie finally?
Two questions.
So the first question, I'll answer the first question, is when I read the book, I read The House of Gucci by Sarah Forden. I fell in love with the story. It was so entertaining, and it had passion, it had love, sex, murder, everything, fun, and fashion, of course, which I love. And so I just felt I want to make this movie. I brought it to Rid. He loved it as well. And there started the journey, looking for the writer to put the story on paper. And that's where the 20 years passed.
Wow.
We never got the story quite right. We didn't have at the time Ridley's availability. And I really wanted to make it with Ridley. He was attached 3 times to this particular project.
I know,
Left me, came back, left me, came back. And I finally got him with this new script. And it's been a joy for me working with him.
This is one of the greatest casts I think ever assembled, and the level of commitment. And it took me on a journey that I forgot I was watching a movie. I was immersed in a world that I didn't want to leave at the end of. So First of all, did you contact Lady Gaga after you saw A Star is Born? Why was she the right person finally for this role? And then you've never worked with Al Pacino before. How is that possible? He just told me he did the movie because of you. And then Jared, that performance was so unexpected. Did you know he was going to take it in that direction when you had your initial meetings?
Well, you know, everything's an unknown quantity and every island is floating in my job. So you got to be courageous to step onto the ice floe. And so you have to make a decision at a certain point. I'm looking at the choice of actresses out there then, let's say a year and a half ago. And it just made all the sense in the world that Stefania would be Lady Gaga, not only because of her talent and because of Star is Born, but she's the right size. She's a showstopper. She's got everything that you could describe Patrizia as. So I think she just fitted the bill, and I never thought any more about anybody else.
And she's Italian.
And she's Italian.
Yeah. Yes,
So
she is.
what was your second question? You asked
Well,
me.
it was Jared and Al and sort of piecing together the rest of the cast.
Well, I've never worked with Al before, so I look for every opportunity for Al to work with, and I can't put Al in a suit of armor. That's not going to work. So I'm just waiting for the moment. I said, okay, this is kind of an Italian story, and it can't be a subtitle movie because the subtitle movies are kind of limited in their choice of audiences. So this is a big movie. So Al is automatically on top of the list as the man who played, was he two Godfathers, and has this wonderful cadence without speaking Italian, he feels Italian.
Very much so. Good, very good point. How integral to the story was it for you? The current House of Gucci gave you the keys to the kingdom. They opened up their archives to you. What did that look like when they opened those doors? Visually, what did it look like? And how many choices did you have there?
I have to admit, I didn't go, but we sent Janty Yates there, who was my costume designer. I've worked with her since Gladiator, actually. And so we sent it down to the Gucci household, the wardrobe of the Gucci in Milan,
Yeah.
in Milan. And Giannina kind of opened that door because she had seen them before. She'd met some of the Guccis 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we are friends. You know, we were lucky enough to be friends with Francois and Salma, who also facilitated the permission to be able to go to these archives and use actual clothes from the archives in one of the scenes in the film, where you see Sophia Loren walk out. All that stuff is real.
Well, and that I came from the fashion world before I was in Hollywood. And I remember that Tom Ford show. I watched it 100 times online. The attention to detail, the fact that the Amber Valletta was the first model that walked out, I was like, you cast the perfect person. So maybe you could talk a little bit about how did you create this world? Because Ridley, you're so known for creating these huge epic movies. This has an epic feel to it, this epic family drama, but there is so much detail to it. Just a little bit about creating the world of Gucci.
I have to put it down to, over the years, I gradually gather or even collect a great team. And so I can move so fast and so detailed because my team helps enormously. And they're all there for a very good reason. And so it's based on trust. And then they will look at things, I'll make the choices. They'll say, what do you want? This, give me 50 choices. I still got to make the choice. But it is to do with, I gather talented people around me. That helps you to move quickly.
Including the person next to you. So this is a story about marriage and about family. How do you, as a working, this family works together and it all falls apart. How do you two make it work? What is your advice?
First and foremost, we're so different than Mauricio and Patrizia.
Yes, I was never intending it. I was not comparing.
I'm Latin, he's Brit. We get along exceptionally well because we are the total opposites as people. And and we respect each other. And I think that's super important when you work. I mean, what happened with Mauricio and Patrizia is Patrizia didn't respect Mauricio's opinion. So that started that break. We respect each other's opinion. I respect his opinion more than he respects mine, let's say the truth. But he is the master. What can I say?
It's very true. And for you, sir, having two back-to-back movies, I mean, The Last Duel, I know with COVID, maybe the release date, but really you're giving us a gift. In 2021, we have two back-to-back movies. I also really loved that movie. So why did you make that choice to sort of do two movies close together like that?
Gladiator was 2000. And since Gladiator, I made 19 movies. So that's the speed I work.
One movie a year in general.
It's unbelievable.
That's normal. That's quite normal. COVID kind of got in the way a bit, but we kind of stepped around it. We danced very cautiously and cleverly around it because, again, a great team. I have a COVID little organization within each film. And each film's got a unit of like 600 personnel. So this every day you're saying, why are you wearing a mask? If you see it one more time without a mask, you're off the case and you may as well go home. So we ran it like that. We had no incidents on two big movies.
What is a moment? Because there was many moments in the film where the cast was just extraordinary. So, but you watching from behind the scenes and watching it, like for example, Al's character, there's a scene where his son betrays him. Instead of saying something awful to him, he hugs him. And I wondered if that was an actor's choice. And just what was a moment maybe for each of you that really...
No, I said, I think it's my line actually. It's Al says to him, my son's a fool, but he's my fool.
An idiot.
And my son's an idiot, and he's my idiot. And so when the son, Paolo, admits that he sold his piece, which is completely, actually puts Al out of everything, kills him. And Al has his marvelous histrionic fit of rage. And at the end of it, he has to forgive him. So I think that's one of the most beautiful moments where he says, you're an idiot, but you're my idiot.